Liu Shiman, Chen Sunman, Xie Yao Xinhua, Fei Tang Rong Xin Lai Hefei. Thanks so much for having me. It's an honor to be here with you. Thanks to the Hefei municipal government and in particular Ms. Lan Shi for inviting me. I'll be talking about what is the impact of AI on innovation and ecosystems. And to start, I'll start by talking about innovation ecosystems, then AI, and then come back to innovation ecosystems. First of all, what is an innovation ecosystem? Many diverse companies and individuals seeking to discover, create, and satisfy needs. They're buying, selling, and partnering with each other through networks and exchanges to address those needs. The best known include, of course, Shenzhen, Silicon Valley, London, Berlin, and I'm very excited to be here in Hefei, and we'll be seeing Hefei, I'm confident, as also one of the best known examples of an innovative ecosystem worldwide in the future. Ecosystems are self-organizing. Here's a company, and this graphic is taken from my book, Unleash Your Inner Company, and you can see that the companies that a company sells to, buys components from, sub-assemblies from, and so forth, form a network. It's constantly changing. It's not designed from the top down. It emerges from the bottom up. The innovation ecosystem that I know best is the one in which I've lived for the last 30 years. That's Silicon Valley in Northern California. Here's a picture of it. How many people here have been to Silicon Valley in Northern California? Raise your hand if you would. Okay, well, some of us. Great. The bulk of it is on the San Francisco Peninsula in that big oval, and the newest part of Silicon Valley is south of Market region, or Soma region of San Francisco, which is that little oval at the top in San Francisco. And of course, Silicon Valley has given rise to a huge diversity of brand names that we know in technology nowadays: Oracle, Facebook, Hewlett-Packard, Microsoft, Intel, Adobe, Apple, and many others. In San Francisco, if we zoom in, we see Uber, Yelp, Zynga, Airbnb. So Silicon Valley has indeed generated a huge diversity of companies and generated great economic growth for the region. Innovation ecosystems are a special example of a complex adaptive system. Other examples are rainforest, stock exchange, market, or the human brain. Now, what is a complex adaptive system? It's one in which order arises bottom up from networks of interactions rather than by top-down design. So a jet engine, for example, is complicated, but it's designed from the top down. So we would not call that a complex adaptive system. In complex adaptive systems like the economy, like the brain, like the markets, order arises from the interactions of those individuals or companies. So people give rise to customs, buyers and sellers give rise to wages and prices, companies give rise to supply chains and ecosystems. Variation in selection are required. New things are being tried, and the market or other forces or nature will select the ones that succeed, and that gives rise to innovation and evolution. These systems are never at equilibrium. They're always changing, they're always dynamic, and they're characterized by attractors, which are forces leading to equilibrium states, but those states may never be reached, and they're constantly changing. They're feedback loops, so there are non-linearities, unpredictability, those can be positive or negative feedback, and if we try to constrain the systems from the top down, we get unintended consequences. Now, Silicon Valley indeed fits this model very well. It has grown and evolved without plan or design for over a century. It actually, most people don't realize how long ago Silicon Valley started. But with the first telegraph wireless and voice radio devices. It gave rise to vacuum tubes, instruments, semiconductors, and so forth. No one could have predicted that semiconductors would give rise to minis and software and PCs and biotech and so forth. Like Hefei, Silicon Valley has a great advantage in its universities, in particular Stanford and Berkeley. Hefei has the University of Science and Technology of China and others here, and so that's a central part of creating any innovative ecosystem. So what are some key features? Companies spin out, trade, position themselves relative to each other and compete with each other. They self-organize in effect with each other. For many successes, for every success there are many failures. And that means learning and adaptation is taking place. There are many more small to medium successes than there are unicorns. How many people here are familiar with the term unicorn? That's a company which has achieved $1 billion US in valuation. Well, there are many more smaller companies that we don't hear about as much as the unicorns that distribute wealth very broadly throughout the region and drive economic growth. It's very difficult to predict not just the winning companies, but even the winning industries. Venture capitalists have a success rate of maybe 1 or 2 out of 10. And you can see if you go beyond more than a few years, it's even difficult to predict the industries. And finally, it takes decades to grow, so you have to have a long-term perspective to create an innovative ecosystem. Now, one thing I emphasize in the book, and I want to remind everyone, is anyone can be an innovator, just by combining things you already know in novel ways. No one else has your unique combination of skills and technologies that you know about. And so you have the potential to create innovations that no one else can. This is something I talk about in chapter 11 of my book. Incidentally, the book will be is being translated into Chinese, and it'll be released next year. I hope to come back and tell you more about it when the Chinese version is out. So, now let's talk about AI. We had a very exciting day visiting some of the centers of AI here at Hefei yesterday. You're familiar with the key application areas, including machine learning, natural language processing, virtual personal assistants, and machine vision. I was at the Wuchen World Internet Conference earlier this week and was so impressed by the robotics, and in particular by the proliferation of drones that I saw there. I think China is just doing fabulous things with drones, far ahead of the U.S. The U.S. has really stymied its own growth in drones and the growth of the industry by overly controlling draconian, I would say, regulations. So good for you, good for China for letting innovation blossom in drones in particular. Now, what will the impact of AI be? I see 2 key impacts. It will make each of us smarter by letting us make more informed and faster and better decisions faster. And it will be like having more smart people around us who can better anticipate needs, develop more creative solutions, and will get more and more autonomy to act over time. Here's one example of how AI will make us smarter. Soon we'll be seeing lifelong AI tutors or mentors who will train us and coach us from early age unto adulthood. The AI knows and remembers everything we have learned or not learned. It'll tailor and adapt itself to each of us. Sense our tone of voice, face, it'll know when we're frustrated, when we need to take a break, it'll be always patient. There won't be any set courses, grades, or exams. It will all be tailored to each and every one of us, the learning that we receive. AI will see what projects and assignments are most challenging and achievable for each of us and inspire us to do them. That creates diversity because those will be tailored to each of our specific skills and interests and passions. What we need to know will be taught to us just in time, and this will bridge the gap from K through 12 to lifelong learning. So very exciting direction for AI. AI will have many unintended and unexpected consequences that are hard to predict. For example, let's take the impact of self-driving cars on property values. Property values, this is the San Francisco Peninsula, and this is San Francisco, are highest closest to the financial district, but increasingly it will become easier to be located further away from right downtown, thanks to autonomous vehicles. You can use the time productively by riding in a vehicle or entertain yourself or work or whatever. And so it'll become more and more attractive to live further away. We may see a return of the suburb and perhaps a reversal of the trend of people moving towards cities or spreading out of that, and a faster increase of real estate values further away than closer in. So that's just one example of the many unexpected consequences we will see of AI. AI will accelerate our addressing of the world's needs. Excuse me, in this chart, we see a slower curve, and the curves didn't turn out quite right, but a slower curve for solutions developed just by people alone, and a faster curve for developing solutions to the world's challenges with a combination of people and working with AI. With the faster pace of innovation, what we learn in college during the ages of, say, 18 to 22, what I call our stock of knowledge that we're armed with for the rest of our lives, will become less important than the continuous flow of knowledge that we gain throughout our lives. So, with the faster pace of innovation, what we learn today will be less and less relevant as time goes on, and the speed with which it will become less relevant will happen at a faster and faster pace. So increasingly, in this age of AI and fast-paced innovation, lifelong learning will become ever more important. AI will accelerate what I call innovation's organic component. I see the pace of innovation as having two broad factors or components. One is an organic component, which relates to how easily and rapidly one innovation can piggyback off of another. And that's driven by such technologies as high-speed networking, online search, social networking, rapid transport. All of the improvements in those areas let us combine ideas more rapidly and innovate more rapidly. Now, on top of that are other factors that also contribute or detract from the pace of innovation. And those are regulatory, and those could be at the national level or at the industry-specific level. In the U.S., we see much of innovation being offshore. We see production and manufacturing being offshore to countries like China. Well, innovation and capability generally accrues to where the work is being done and the problems are being solved. So that's a factor that detracts from the pace of innovation in the U.S., in my opinion, and which enhances the pace of innovation in China. Industry-specific regulations also affect the pace of innovation. Wittingly or unwittingly, entrepreneurs tend to gravitate to the least regulated industries. That's why, for example, we see over 100,000 health and fitness mobile apps for the iPhone, but relatively few startups in such areas as aviation, construction, or pharmaceuticals. These latter areas are much more heavily regulated than are the health and fitness mobile apps. Well, if just a few of those entrepreneurs could be freed up to work in those other areas, the other areas would advance at much more rapid paces, and the world would enjoy much more rapid progress overall. Industry-specific, another example of that is drones. In the U.S., the Federal Aviation Administration very strictly controls drones, and as a result, there's relatively little innovation as compared to other parts of the world in the U.S. That's too bad. That's a major industry that could be taking place in the U.S. that really is getting a tough start. So don't make the same mistake the United States is. Don't over-regulate these industries to the extent of precluding innovation. Now, what would be a good measure to keep track of, to see how well you're doing from the standpoint of promoting innovation? I'd like to call your attention to the World Bank Ease of Doing Business Index. How many people have heard of the World Bank Ease of Doing Business Index? Okay, well, a few of us. Great. I'm pictured here with Simeon Janko, who's the creator of the index and formerly Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Finance of Bulgaria. Now, what the index does is it ranks 190 countries and regions worldwide from the order of where number 1 is the easiest to do business and number 190 is the most difficult to do business. Well, let's see where China ranks on this. China is number 78, a little better than halfway through the list. The beautiful thing about the index is that China has improved on the index over the last few years. Either last year or the year before last, it was 84. You've improved to 78. Wonderful. The great thing about the World Bank Ease of Doing Business Index is it gives you detailed guidance for where you should improve. So, at least relative to other countries in the world. So we see, for example, dealing with construction permits, China is number 172. That's not great. But on registering property, number 41, good, and so forth. So the index gives you detailed guidance of where to focus. So here we see the first 90 companies on the index. China is at 78. Here is a goal which is very manageable and achievable. And that is, regardless of where you are on that list, cut your rank in half in the next 5 years. If you're currently at 78, make it a goal to be at 39 in 5 years. It is an aggressive goal, it is an achievable goal, and it's one that will benefit every single person in China. Long-term goal, make China number 1 on the World Bank Ease of Doing Business Index. Then entrepreneurs from all over the world and innovators will be attracted to come to China and to work here. There is a similar index for the 50 U.S. states put out by Cato. And sadly, my state, California, you can see is number 49. And not surprisingly, people, innovators, professionals are leaving Silicon Valley and they're going to other states. Probably the state they're most frequently going to is Texas. Even Texas, though, you'll see doesn't rank that well on this list. The number 1 state is New Hampshire. Now, New Hampshire is not a very large state. You may not be aware of it. It's just north of Massachusetts in the northeast. But I can talk at length about all the good things that it's doing to promote entrepreneurship and innovation. And as a result, it's enjoying very healthy economic growth. So, how about this? How about a similar index for the provinces of China? Maybe you already have one. If so, great. And whichever province you're in, make it your goal to be the number 1 province of China. We're here in the Anhui province. Let's make the Anhui province number 1 in China. That will benefit everyone in the province and China. And I'm not playing favorites. I would say make the same advice to any province or state in the U.S. or country in the world. So, it's been a great pleasure to be here. Thanks very much for having me. Look forward to talking further with you. 谢谢.
So, a little bit of background information on yourself and what do you expect to get out of this meeting today?
I'm John Chisholm. I'm a serial entrepreneur in Silicon Valley. I have started, grown, and sold 4 companies. I served as president of the MIT Worldwide Alumni Association, and I'm author of Unleash Your Company, which is a step-by-step guide for discovering, launching, and scaling the ideal business for you. I am looking forward to learning from my fellow panelists here today and getting ideas and inspiration, just as I've enjoyed getting ideas and inspiration from all the previous speakers today. So
In your world, from your experience, how would you like to define talent for innovation and entrepreneurship? What does that mean to you?
How would I define entrepreneurial talent? Well, two dimensions come to mind that underlie entrepreneurship: passion and perseverance. Passion is an attitude, and perseverance is a behavior. And separately, they have some value, but together they're a very powerful combination and enable entrepreneurship, I think. The reason for that is that they reinforce each other and form a positive feedback loop. We just heard about positive feedback loops from the previous speaker. If you just stick with something long enough, so you get good at it and better at it, and then start to like it and then love it, that's an example of perseverance driving passion. Conversely, if you already are passionate about a field, the hours will go by like minutes. And so it's easy to persevere in those circumstances. So I like to say they form a positive feedback loop, and if you can think of any aspect of your life where you've experienced this positive feedback between passion and perseverance, that's probably a really good area to consider starting a company. You will have a natural advantage starting a company in those areas for three reasons. One, you will have staying power to break through obstacles, which you will absolutely encounter when you're starting a new business. Two, you will discover the limitations of products and services in your field before others do, because it's a field that you're passionate about. You're trying all the different features of the product and service, and so you discover unsatisfied customer needs sooner, and then you can act on them sooner. And then third, your passion and perseverance are contagious to the other members of your team. So those are some.
So passion and perseverance, all these very great qualities you have. I know you've been in the field for so many years. Do you have an example from the past that you want to share with us how this works out and turn to become an important quality for being an entrepreneurial story?
I think adversity is a great aspect of developing passion, perseverance, character, and more broadly, talent. Let me tell you about the toughest year of my life, and the year that I learned the most about entrepreneurship, business, and life. It was the year 2001, the dot-com bust. Does anyone here remember the dot-com bust? For the young people in the audience, just to refresh your memory, the internet first became productized in the 1990s. It attracted a huge investment and overinvestment that culminated in 1999, at least in the US. That huge investment and overinvestment of billions of dollars collapsed in the year 2000 and 2001, and many companies, thousands of companies, startups started going out of business left and right. I was running my second startup at that time, Customer Set. And the first quarter of 2001, I would often wake up in sweat-soaked sheets sticking to my skin at 2 in the morning. Our second round of financing, our Series B round, refused to close despite a flurry of meetings with investors as we ran out of cash. Those nights I would get up, shower off the sweat, and try to get back to sleep. When we finally realized that our Series B round was not going to close, we huddled to figure out what to do. First, we cut our own salaries, my management team and I, by 10%. I cut my own salary and that of my CFO by 50%. Agonizing and debating over every individual, we laid off 40% of our workforce, 40% of the company I had spent the last 3 years of my life building. When I assembled our remaining employees to explain to them that this was the only way we could stay afloat and stay together, I felt my composure collapsing, and I broke down sobbing in front of our employees. They stood there stunned, sympathetic, and embarrassed that their CEO was crying in front of them. One of our investors lent me $300,000 to help us get through for the company, but not to the company, meaning that I would be personally liable for repaying the loan. Later, I would repay that investor, to whom, despite the arrangement, I was deeply grateful, by mortgaging my townhouse. We moved to smaller offices to save on rent. I reduced my salary to minimum wage, the legal limit. We factored receivables at a significant cost to make payroll. Finally, we could see profitability ahead in the third quarter of 2001. And then, as you know, on September 11th, terrorists attacked the World Trade Center, and it took an entire day just to confirm that all of our employees were still alive. The next day, I was finally able to put out a broadcast message: all customer sat employees are safe. Even though we were 3,000 miles away in Silicon Valley from the terrorist attacks, every company I know, even there, lost employees, lost customers, or had customers or clients who lost employees or family members in the attack. Well, we didn't make a profit in the third quarter. We did break even in the fourth quarter. The going kept tough for a year and a half, but we made it through. And the company was acquired 7 years later. Why did we survive when so many other companies failed? I absolutely don't think we were smarter than other management teams. We absolutely did not have more in the way of resources than other management teams did. If I had to boil it down to just two factors, I would say we cared more deeply about our business than other companies did, about all aspects of it, the coolness of our products, the satisfaction of our customers, and about each other more than other companies did. And we stuck with it longer, for 7 years before we were acquired. So again, this same combination of passion and perseverance got us through. The same passion and perseverance that all of you can muster for your companies to make them a success.
I think earlier in the day you talked about ecosystem, right? Ecosystem for innovation and entrepreneurship. And we spoke about the effect of MSIA, how that impact, the opportunity to work or intern at MSIA had an impact on young entrepreneurs or young academics. And what advice do you have for Hefei related to building somewhat of an ecosystem, maybe related to a similar type of Microsoft research in here or other type that would help to cultivate the culture of innovation and entrepreneurship here?
Well, I hear a few thoughts. One of the greatest learning opportunities is trying and failing. And so it has to be okay to fail if you're going to learn rapidly. Of course, you don't want to keep failing indefinitely. At some point, you want to have a success. But I think it's really hard to learn if there aren't some failures along the way. So the real key, I think, to success in entrepreneurship is trying a lot of things, many of which will fail, maybe most of which will fail, but some things that you will discover the right thing to do, the right fit between a product and a customer need, just recognizing the customer need that other people didn't recognize previously. And it may well be that there's an optimal mix between success and failure. If you have failed every single time, well, the next time you try something, maybe you should set your sights a little more modestly and plan to apply more in the way of resources to that project or goal. If you've had lots of successes in a row, maybe the next time you should set your goal a little more ambitiously than you would otherwise. And therefore take more of a risk than you would otherwise. And that way, find the optimal level of success and failure that's most comfortable and right for you. Well, my thought is very similar to yours, Thomas, from a slightly different vantage point. I started my first company with a really cool technology for which there was no market need. And needless to say, it didn't go anywhere. It took me 6 to 9 months to let go of that idea and exchange it for something for which there was a real market need, namely the ability to use email to do surveys. So it's so tempting. We engineers tend to get excited about technologies and forget about the customer need. That's a mistake not to make. You will be so much further ahead if you identify the customer need first that you want to identify, and then choose a technology or develop a technology that will help you address it. I like to say that within areas you're passionate about, there are only 2 things you need to start a company and make it a success: a real unsatisfied customer need and an advantage for satisfying that need relative to others who might be satisfying it or trying to satisfy it. And you have many more advantages than you realize. I use the acronym STARS to summarize all of the resources that you have to bring to bear on starting a company. Your skills, the technologies that you know about, your assets, physical, financial, and knowledge-based, your previous achievements, your relationships, both personal and professional, and your reputation, and your strengths as in inner strengths. And something that's very worthwhile, so that's the word STARS with 2 A's and 2 R's. Something that's very worthwhile is take out a big sheet of paper, use a spreadsheet, put one of those letters or words at the top of each of 7 columns, and write down as many of the resources that you have to work with under each of those. And you may discover that you have many more than you realize.